This is going to be a video about putting a kill switch in my Ibanez RG7421. If you choose to try this, you should at least have some basic skills using a soldering iron, carving tools, drill. If you hurt yourself, damage your equipment, don't blame me. I'm doing this at my own risk as well. I'm going to be using a Radio Shack mini push button switch, part number 275-1556. You'll need, besides the switch, you'll need, of course, a pair of wire clippers, some solder, rosin core preferably, a soldering iron. You want to get something a low wattage, like a 24 watt, because you don't want to. Heat is our friend in melting solder, but our enemy in damaging electronics. And I'm going to be using, because I'm a computer tech, I've got some wire here. The better quality wire you use, the better. I think we were looking at 22 gauge in Radio Shack, but it was too expensive. Alright, let's talk about what we're actually doing here. Inside the guitar, you have a ground and a lead. Electricity travels in the circuit. So what we need to do to make the kill switch work is to interrupt that circuit. Two methods. One method actually interrupts the ground itself, just cuts it off. And in that method, there is you can get nasty noises from just cutting the ground. So the other method that's used is to take and bridge across the ground and the power. So you're actually shorting out the pickup. It sounds bad, but it's not. There's no moving parts. It's just a magnet in the coils, and it doesn't cause anything powerful above the line level signal. This is an always open switch, so it's going to be disengaged until you press on it. And when you press on the button, that's what shorts across the ground and the power and causes the cut. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some wire from this computer component here, and I'm going to make sure I've got enough room to reach into the body cabinet. It's a pretty good size measurement. I can shorten it if I need to once I get it soldered on. And this is a trick that I learned from my dad that, once again, not a smart thing to do. I don't recommend you do this. It's just how I do it. To strip the wire, you can either use a pair of wire strippers, or if you don't let it catch on fire too much, you can just heat the outer casing a little bit and strip the wire that way. You want to wet your fingertips when you do that. Don't let it catch on fire too much. And you've got two ready to go. Of course, I'm going to use black to represent the ground and red to represent the lead. One of the things that I like to do when I'm soldering is to take the strands of wire and separate them as evenly as possible. There's not many strands to this wire, so I've only got a few here. And then I twist them so I've got two separate pieces of wire almost. And in this particular guitar, I've got enough of a loop there that I can fit it through the hole where the wire is already through, which is nice. So I'm going to be putting the wire through. I've gone ahead and stuck the positive wire through the hole and used a tool to pull the end of it back up and kind of wrap it around. Now I'm just going to get a small amount of solder on the soldering iron and touch that up. And it's important you don't get too much solder on here, because the more metal, the more chance you have of picking up interference. That's why you don't want to use too heavy a gauge of wire. I think 22, like I said before, was what we were looking at. I just dab a little bit on the tip, and let's see how well that is. And you just want to touch the solder across. You don't want to get too much on there, and you don't want to let too much heat transfer from the soldering iron to the components. So you just want to make sure that you get a good solid solder. Let it cool a little bit. Make sure you don't get any stray wires. Okay, that's secure. Now I've got the negative connected, just stuck through the hole and wrapped around. That's some good solder there. So I'm going to have to use some of mine, which is still good solder, but it's got a lower melting point. I don't want to apply too much heat here. But now I've got the positive and negative are both soldered to the output jack. Now I've got the wires fed through the body cavity. You want to make sure that you have plenty of room to get it in, but you don't want too much excess wire, because the more wire, the more chance it acts like an antenna and picks up noise. So I'm going to have to decide where I'm going to put this kill switch. I got to figure out where I want mine, because you don't want to hit it while you're strumming the guitar. I'm probably going to put it right in between the two volume and tone switch here. The first thing we want to do, of course, is to pull the cap gently off the switch. It just comes right off. And let's go ahead and unscrew the hold down mechanism, because we want to get the soldering done and then worry about that, because we're going to test it before we do anything. Now, what I like to do is to take and break the strands of wire up into as equal as possible portions and twist them so that they're like two individual wires. And this one's the ground. That way, you can run one wire through, and then twist it and sometimes after I twist it, if it's flexible enough, I'll put it back through the hole, but mostly I just try to wrap it around. If you've got a loose switch like this, the first one you can kind of twist. Get some solder on there. I want to get solder on both sides. That's perfect. Do the same trick with separating the strands. And twisting them into individual bits of wire. And twist them together like a bread tie. Wrapping around the post. I think I'm going to be smart and try to get the inside soldered first. Okay, that looks about perfect. Now the kill switch is installed and that's hot, so that's, if you can use a heat dam, it's a little aluminum pincer unit that you put on there to try to suck up the heat, but I don't have one currently, and I'm fairly experienced with this, so I know how to keep the heat down to a minimum. Alright, let's see if we can test this thing. Okay, it seems to be working, so. Okay, now comes the interesting part. We're gonna have to make a hole in this thing. Normally I would just use carving tools, but I found a 1/4-inch drill bit, is what it looks like. And when I hold it up against this ring that goes around that particular part, it looks like it will fit just perfectly to hold it in place. So I'm going to save some time and use this drill bit. And the thing about it is what you'll want to do in a finish you care about is take an X-Acto knife, map it out exactly, and then cut in the finish around where you're going to be drilling through. But my guitar is over 10 years old and it's so chipped up, which is why I took a torch to it and made the peace sign. So I don't really care. I'm just going to drill into it, and the finish will probably be okay. I'll use some carving tools to minimize it, but I'm not really worried about whether it chips or not. I do volume effects. I'm using my volume pedal on my Line 6 now, but I want to continue to be able to do that, so I don't use my tone as much. I'm going to try to get the kill switch as close to this as possible. And I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And there's the hole on the other side. That should work. Okay, 1/4 inch is just a good starting point. Just to widen it out a little bit, though. If you can't tell, the battery's dead. It's still doing the job. Ha, it fits. Okay. She is installed. I'm going to put the knob on. And let's give her a try. Oh yeah, I like this. So, it's not really a whole lot to it. Make sure that you have extra switches, because these are $1.50 switches. Oh, I'm going to have fun with this. I hope you do too. If you try it. And if you burn yourself, cut yourself, destroy your equipment, it's not my fault.